Honestly, holy shit, we know a lot more about Ark 2 than I ever gave it credit for. With the new trailer that was just unveiled at the Xbox show, I was interested in looking into a video like this to kind of go over everything we know about Ark 2. As a big fan of Ark Survival Evolved, for mostly the single player aspect, I never really got into the multiplayer, mostly because I didn't have access to it for the longest time. I really enjoyed the game they created, while I didn't get too much into the story aspects. So it's interesting to see that they're going more for a story approach for the sequel, and honestly, I'm willing to give it a shot because I love the world they create, and I love the mechanics that they've created as well, and hopefully this game will at least follow very similar rules. But with that being said, let's hop into everything we know about Ark 2. So once again, Ark is being published and developed by Studio Wildcard. However, it does seem that Grove Street Games has been brought on as a co-developer. And if their Steam page is pretty much their full library, honestly, Grove Street Games doesn't have anything to show for themselves of any note that seemingly would help on this project, but all the same, Studio Wildcard, in my opinion, is a pretty decent developer. Alright, to go ahead and get the need to knows out of the way, Ark will be launching in 2023, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but it's going to be a console exclusive to the Xbox Series X and S, as well as Xbox Game Pass Day 1 release, and of course PC with the Steam release. Now, we have no set release date, only a release window of 2023. However, the Xbox Gameplay Showcase, where the new trailer was revealed, very clearly stated that all of the games shown would be releasing in the next 12 months, therefore the first half of 2023. So really interesting that we might be able to narrow it down. Of course, delays can happen, but you should be able to expect Ark 2 in the first half of 2023. And before we do officially get into the gameplay and everything that's going to be changed here, one more thing I want to point out is that it will be on Unreal Engine 5, and you can kind of see the fruits of that labor with the most recent trailer, as that is all captured in-game. It is not gameplay per se, but it is in-engine footage, much like how Starfield's last reveal trailer was compared to this one. Very similar styles, you can get an exact feel of how the game is going to look, though unfortunately we don't know how it will run as of right now. But it is said to have a full utilization of Unreal tech, as foliage will convincingly react to the passing wildlife, or water will flow downstream around obstacles, volumetric storm clouds, localized weather systems, as well as smoke particles affected by physical forces. Now, this is very interesting because almost all of these had absolutely nothing to do with the first game. It's very cool to see, and I'm really excited to see just how in-depth this will go. There will be fundamental advancement to lighting systems that will enable more photorealistic day and night cycles, and that will also generate real-time ambient lighting and shadows within both natural and player-constructed environments, which that was a big thing in the first game. The natural environments honestly did pretty good with the shadows. However, when it came to the foliage, or especially the player-constructed stuff, that's when a lot of the shadow issues came in, because it just wasn't something the game could expect. And now that you know what to expect, let's get into exactly what the premise is. You will survive the past, tame the future. Suddenly awakened on a primal world filled with dinosaurs and humans struggling for dominance, you must team up with legendary heroes to confront powerful dark forces, and you'll saddle up and join the definitive next-gen survival experience with Ark 2. Every aspect of the Ark series has been rethought and redesigned in this sequel. And to continue on with the story premise, we have the fact that Vin Diesel is playing Santiago, someone who was originally in the initial reveal trailer, all the way back at the Game Awards, and he, of course, you know him. He's family, and in this game he's going to be looking out for family as well. And he will be trying to protect his daughter, who is Mika, who is voiced by, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but she was in Moana. So, really cool cast here as the two main leads, and he will be protecting her from the ghosts of the ancient past and visions of a new future. So, really kind of cryptic there, but that's kind of the point, I'm sure. And it seems that there will be a story in the forefront, and I hope this is single player. I really don't want to do this in a multiplayer setting. If I can get the story and then have the exact same world in a multiplayer setting, that would be just as good to me. But real quick though, I want to circle back around to teaming up with legends across the Ark, and I actually have a bit of speculation as to what that's about. It's also confirmed that Ark is getting an animated series, and there are going to be 14 30-minute episodes, and they're all in post-production right now. Now, I don't really care too much about this. I'm not going to be following it other than this. I may watch it when it comes out if it turns out to be good, but what's really interesting here is the cast in the show. We of course once again have Vin Diesel playing Santiago, the seemingly main protagonist of the series now that it's been reworked, and it's really interesting to see that he is from the 24th century, but all the other characters are not from the same timeline, and they're all being brought from different points into this one universe. Next up we have Michelle Yeoh, who is most notably in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Another big name is Russell Crowe, playing Kor the Prophet. Gerard Butler is Gaius Marcellus Nerva. Sir Edmund Rockwell, played by David Tennant, of course, from Doctor Who. Henry Townsend is played by Jeffrey Wright. Many people know him now as Gordon from The Batman, as well as he was in The Last of Us Part 2, and my personal favorite, he was opposite to James Bond in Casino Royale. And as a little side note, we have Cissy Jones, who I love from Firewatch. She's a really big voice talent in the games industry, and she's playing the Gladiatrix, as well as Bob, played by Carl Urban, who you know from the best Doom movie of all time, as well as most recently from The Boys. Now, there's a few other names here, but I didn't personally know them. Maybe other people do, but go ahead and look out that full cast if that's what you're interested in. But what's really cool here is that I think these are going to be the heroes that we're going to be meeting up with, or at least some of them. And that would be really interesting. Now, perhaps you don't want to expect Russell Crowe or Gerard Butler, but I honestly feel that Jeffrey Wright could be a match for this game. He's already been in games in the past. Same with Cissy Jones, of course. Those are pretty easy gets, all things considered. David Tennant, I don't know if he would, but I feel like he'd be really up for the role. But either way, my point is, potentially look out for some of these characters to be important to the story of Ark 2, just as much as the Ark animated series. But with that being said, let's continue on with the features that are listed on the Steam page itself. And next up we have revolutionary cross-platform modding, which is fully stackable user-created mods for new creatures, items, gameplay features, and maps, and they're going to be distributed across all platforms, along with support for modded unofficial servers. Which, this is really cool, as, you know, the first game did not get mod support, and it's something that was really pioneered by Bethesda with Skyrim as well as Fallout 4. Yet another reason why I don't think Ark 2 would work very well on the PlayStation platform. It's not coming there, mind you, but they usually don't play too well with user-created content. So continuing on, I think it's really interesting that they mention cross-platform here. This isn't confirmation of crossplay, and we don't have that at this time, but I will say that most Xbox games that come out now are cross-play. I never really messed around with modding too much in the first game, but I do think it's something that's really important to the game's longevity as far as content, and if they support Ark 2 as much as they supported the first game, I'll be really interested to see how far the game actually does go with new maps, expansions, or potentially even story expansions, but we'll have to wait and see. Either way, this is starting to shape up to be a pretty interesting title for the Xbox platform, as well of course as PC. Next up we have the best-in-class third-person only gameplay, and where we'll get advanced character traversal mechanics like mantling, something recently added to the zero build mode in Fortnite where you can basically grab ledges and climb up them, as well as free climbing, which was said in the Xbox Wire post to be very similar to that of Breath of the Wild, and parkour and sliding and swinging, which all seem to have influence from the Assassin's Creed series as well, something that Assassin's Creed could also learn from Assassin's Creed, but that's another story for another day. Either way, this is third-person only gameplay, so unfortunately you won't be getting first-person, which is the way I love to play Ark, but perhaps, you know, given the fact that in the main story you'll be playing as Vin Diesel, they want to get the most out of that character model as possible. Hey, they paid the guy, they might as well make you see it. Much like what I think they'll do with the new Indiana Jones game, where you don't just get Harrison Ford and not use his character model all the time. Next up, another interesting thing to note is that it's Souls-like melee combat, where you'll get target locking on, blocks, dodges, combos, staggers, special attacks, and even emphasizing player skill-based action, especially in the multiplayer setting, which on the Xbox Wire post, they also mentioned that that is pretty rare for an MMO survival game, which is true, but the other thing they note is that Santiago himself usually tends to lean more towards the primitive weapons rather than tech. Not sure why, but he is from the 24th century, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. Hopefully, even in the story, we'll still get more advancement, because that would be kind of boring. But perhaps this is a balancing thing to where there are no guns, because that would just make the game completely easy. But again, for the multiplayer, I don't expect anything like that will be changed. And of course, all this is going to be taking place in a massive new alien environment, so that's all but confirmation that this won't be taking place in the original island or at the original setting. You'll explore a mysterious, chaotic world where native flora and fauna are being overrun by invasive, primeval creatures from an extinct Earth. So it seems that the dinosaurs are actually new to the world as well, so they're actually going to be out of place here, and they're not in their home, so potentially we'll see some new interactions with dinosaurs that we didn't see in the first game. Another thing mentioned in the Xbox Wire post, as well as the Steam page, is component-based item crafting. Construct your weapons and tools from a range of different modules to customize their look and functionality. Millions of possible combinations enable you to craft your own unique gear. The specific materials you choose will further affect the appearance of your items, with multiple options for resources found in unique regions of the world. So that's really cool that we kind of have some player agency as far as what we're creating, and hopefully that means that each player, whether that be in the multiplayer or just screenshots on Twitter from your single player experience, are going to be super unique and stand out. And honestly, this is shaping up to be something that could be very much like an Elden Ring situation. You know, everyone loved exploring that game. Somebody posted a screenshot like, oh, where the hell was that? I never saw that. And I'm not saying that the world is going to be like that necessarily, but creating your own items could very well be just like that. But continuing on with the world though, we have dynamic world events. Natural and unnatural occurrences are always happening across the game world, and that'll all be independent of your presence, meaning that whether you're there or not, these things are always happening, and your choices in deciding whether to interact with these events will yield rewards or challenges. And on the Steam page, that's really all it says, but if we hop back over to the Xbox Wire page, it does elaborate just a little bit further. They say that it was important that the world wasn't static, meaning that everything that happened there wasn't just the dinosaurs or creatures moving around, and rather that things would happen. And quite a few examples are given, which kind of gives us an idea of what could be happening. For instance, like procedurally dynamic scenarios such as watering hole gatherings, wounded creatures, tracking the signs of advanced prey, stampedes, herds, defending endangered creatures to earn their trust, and even finding dens of parent creatures along with their young. Overall, this seems pretty interesting, and with it being procedurally generated, no one having the exact same experience all the time, I think this really does gain to the fact that this is going to be an experience. When you get on Twitter, you're going to see people having completely different experiences than yourself, and I think that's where this game is really going to shine. But prehistoric dinosaurs aren't going to be the only enemy in the game. There will also be an opposing PvE force, meaning player versus pretty much the AI. And those are the hostile Arete, who will hunt and attack you riding their own tamed creatures as they seek to drive human interlopers, or anyone brought in from the different timelines, from their world. So these are the natives, and it's interesting that they have also evolved to take on the dinosaurs, seeing as how they don't seem to be from the world either. But perhaps they're there longer than you are. Either way, I think this is really interesting, and something we'll have to see just how omnipresent they are. Perhaps we'll have strongholds that we'll have to take out, or we can take over some of their villages. Either way, I'm really curious to see how they implement a PvE enemy into the game that seems to have more advanced AI. Next up tackles something that I think that was a big issue with the first game, and that is the advanced template building and sharing, which means that instance rendering and network streaming enable much higher client and server performance for large player-built structures, as well as a longer draw distance. Something that you'd get a lot of pop-in or really heavy frame drops in the first game when playing in PvP. My short experience with it did show this. Survivors can set up and save their own preferred base templates, share them, and place prospective template layouts in the world and then build them out as a team. So pretty much what this means is it's very similar actually to Fallout 76. You can both save your preference and hopefully replace the object as well, but also like the forest where you basically place the blueprint and then you can all contribute to it, adding resources to it until it's completed. Something that I think is the best move to make for this game. Although in the first game, it did seem more like a balancing thing than anything, so I'm curious to see how they kind of go against that here. Next up, we have an improvement to the creature AI, another improvement from the first game, and that is they're making it way more sensory-based. So there will be no omnipresent radar. Animals will now track and hunt by sight, sound, and smell. smell an interesting new thing, so maybe if you're downwind of someone, they're going to know right where you're at, or at least start looking for you. So to hide from predators with visual camouflage and environmental obstructions, and learn to mask your scent. So I'm glad that there will be answers to these new questions. And dynamic pathfinding will enable creatures to intelligently maneuver around obstacles and player-built structures, so they won't just start attacking a wall to get the closest way to you when they could just run around it. And this was something I actually did experience a lot in the first game. Raptors especially would dart straight for you at all times, even if they weren't necessarily looking for you. You'd pretty much have to be crouching and like 50 feet away to even have a chance of getting by undetected. Which was fine except for the alphas. Oh my god, the alphas. Wrapping up here at the end, we have the character progression and skill system. You'll gain both experience points from gameplay, much like the first game, and level up, but you'll also have knowledge points by accomplishing key objectives and overcoming unique challenges. And with doing that, you'll progress along a massive skill tree filled with new active abilities, perks, and passive benefits. So potentially in-game world events that you could survive or, help dinosaurs or something, maybe those will actually be something that will add to your skill tree. Either way, we don't know too much, but it is confirmed that sometime in the ideal near future, it would pretty much have to be within the next year if nothing else, we'll be getting an in-depth gameplay look thanks to the Xbox Wire. Either way, that's really all we know about Ark 2 right now. If I missed anything, let me know. I mostly stuck to the Xbox Wire post, as well as the Steam page. Of course, any trailers shown in the background are from Ark 2, and you can pick out a few little things from there, but, I'm not going to go through and say, oh, there's going to be dodos in this game, just like the first game. Nothing like that. I'm really excited just to see how far they go with this. And an interesting little side note to anyone who doesn't have the game as of right now, Ark Survival Evolved is currently free to claim up until June 19th. I'm not sure if this is also on Xbox, but currently it is on the PC Steam store. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, let me know if there's anything I missed, or what you're excited for. Let me know down below, or go ahead and just like the video if you're a lurker. That's fine too. It helps me out a lot. I'm trying to really get to 600 subscribers. Thanks again for watching. I know this is a little bit longer video than my usual info videos, but if you're interested in the other ones, go ahead and check those out as well. Yeah, subscribe. Bye.